When people talk about African history, it almost always starts with slavery or colonization. But here's the truth. Before Europeans arrived, Africa was home to empires richer than any in Europe, universities older than Oxford, and trade networks that stretched across continents. This is the story of how Africa ruled and thrived, long before colonization. Take the Mali Empire, which rose to power in the 13th century. Its most famous ruler, Mansa Musa, reigned from 1312 to 1337, and is often called the richest man in history. His wealth came from Mali's vast gold reserves and control of the trans-Saharan trade routes. In 1324, on his pilgrimage to Mecca, Musa reportedly gave away so much gold in Cairo that it caused inflation for years. Imagine being so wealthy that your generosity destabilized an entire economy. Further south, the Kingdom of Great Zimbabwe thrived between the 11th and 15th centuries. Its stone walls and towers, built without mortar, still stand today as evidence of a powerful trade hub. Gold and ivory moved through its markets, connecting southern Africa to Arabia, India, and even China. So how did people determine wealth in pre-colonial Africa? In West Africa, it was gold, salt, and land. Salt was as valuable as gold, vital for preserving food and human health. In the Swahili coast, wealth meant control over ports and trade routes, measured in spices, ivory, and international connections. In Ethiopia and Nubia, kings displayed wealth through monumental architecture, religious manuscripts, and control of fertile land. And across the continent, wealth was also measured in people, not just as laborers, but as members of powerful households, warriors, and skilled artisans. Africa wasn't lawless, it had complex systems of governance. In the Ashanti Kingdom of present-day Ghana, power was balanced between the king, known as the Asantehene, and councils of elders who represented the people. The Yoruba city-states of Ife and Oyo used a system where kings, Obas, ruled but were kept in check by councils and secret societies. Even in decentralized societies, villages governed through assemblies. Decisions were often made by consensus, not by decree. Far from being primitive, these systems often had built-in checks and balances, something Europe was still struggling to achieve in the same era. Africa wasn't isolated, it was global. The trans-Saharan trade routes linked West Africa to North Africa and the Mediterranean. Gold from Mali and Ghana was traded for books, textiles, and horses. The Swahili coast, cities like Kilwa and Mombasa, were international melting pots trading ivory and slaves for porcelain from China and spices from India. Archaeologists have found Ming Dynasty porcelain in East African ruins, proving these links. Even before European colonization, Africa was at the center of a global economic system. Knowledge thrived here too. The University of Sankore in Timbuktu, founded in the 12th century, hosted tens of thousands of manuscripts on law, medicine, mathematics, and astronomy. The Benin Kingdom created bronze artworks so sophisticated that Europeans who first saw them in the 15th century couldn't believe Africans made them. African metallurgists were smelting iron and steel as early as 500 BCE, centuries before much of Europe caught on. Innovation wasn't imported here, it was born here. But what about slavery? Did it exist before Europeans came? Yes, but it was fundamentally different. In pre-colonial Africa, slavery was often tied to war captives, debt, or punishment. Enslaved people could be integrated into families, rise to positions of influence, or even marry into elite circles. For example, in the Songhai Empire, some slaves became generals and advisors. By contrast, European transatlantic slavery was racial, hereditary, and dehumanizing. People became property for life, their children enslaved too, with no hope of integration. This system, unlike anything in Africa, was designed to strip away humanity for profit. So why don't we hear this history? Colonial powers deliberately erased it. To justify conquest, they painted Africa as a land of chaos and darkness, ignoring centuries of achievement. But the truth is clear. Before colonization, Africa was home to kingdoms, knowledge systems, and wealth that rivaled any part of the world. This is the history we weren't taught. Africa wasn't waiting to be discovered, it was thriving long before colonization. Did you know any of this about Africa? Did it stimulate your curiosity about the continent's potential? For more like this, we would love you to like, subscribe, and set notifications for reminders of our videos, because the real history of Africa deserves to be told, and we're excitedly doing so.